All right, Annie Newton, welcome to Out of the Hourglass. I'm so thrilled to have you. How are you this afternoon?
I love that saying, better than I deserve.
No, it's not. It's definitely not. I say this a lot because I don't always. There are people who I should have had on this podcast like years ago, and you were one of them. Just because you're so like prevalent in our group and in the industry, so it's an overdue conversation. So thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure. It's so fun. I just think about it was 2008 when
Wow.
I discovered the Nolan group, and here we are.
Here we are in a whole different way, but
Totally.
and so much has happened in that time, and we'll dive into that here in a moment. But for those listeners who don't know you, can you give us a quick rundown of who you are, what you do, and where
Sure.
you're from?
Absolutely. So I get to live on the east side of the state in Washington. So that means we have it dry. We're famous for our onions and our wine. That's the only thing that puts us on the map.
I like both of
Um,
those,
I
so
know,
it's great.
right? Right. Those Walla Walla Sweet. How I came in contact with the Nolan Group, my brother and I had a painting company get together for 18 years. So that's how all this got started. It was really fun.
Yes.
Today, I'm the founder of ProfitWorks, and we really have two offerings, fractional CFO, controllership, and then the other side is talent, global talent we make available to others. So it's funny, they actually have a relationship with each other, but those are the things that I've been doing for the last 6 years. Yeah.
Amazing. It
Yeah.
really is so cool how, I mean, how full circle this kind of moment is and just the work that you're doing. Like back to 2008 when you began working with the Nolan coaches and being a part of the summit group. And I remember going to a couple workshops where you were and always seeing you being a share. You were always a collaborator. You were always one to, share best practices. I remember your voice being pretty prominent in those, and maybe because I was a young college graduate at the time, and I'm seeing you so well spoken and respected in an industry that there's not a lot of women who kind of
No.
are on that stage, and so you always stood out to me as someone I was like, Annie's really cool. She's got
Aw,
like she just has a way about her. And now here you are, you're a trusted resource in this industry, in within the summit group. You work with several of our clients.
yeah.
What does it
Yeah.
mean for you to be kind of full circle like this?
It's pretty wild. I think it's a great spot to have started out as a client. From starting out at boot camp, first ascent, flying home with my brother from Philadelphia and going, all right, we're on the struggle bus. Think we need a different income stream. And little did we know it was 2008
Yeah.
and the economy was just starting to financial hiccup.
Hmm.
And we're pivoting, and our weekly meetings turned into looking at the builders. We had custom level 4 and level 5. We're very proud of our finishes, very high end work. New
Hmm.
construction, we all know that translates to terrible margins, generally speaking. And we were graphing, predicting what builder would probably fold and when. So,
Interesting.
yeah, it was quite, but I think it shapes your future when it's scrappy. Very few in our local market made it through that time.
Hmm.
But it influences decisions today when I don't know if any of us have felt really great. 2025 was a challenging year. We reflect back on some of those times going, what was true then, what's different, and what serves us. So it's a pretty wild full circle. We had the privilege of being coached by Brian,
Hmm.
and I had not had a coach before. I didn't play sports growing up. It wasn't allowed in our home. And it's funny, the things you discover in adulthood that most people know in their childhood.
Hmm.
It was a very special thing. And I think given a brother-sister relationship dynamic that we had, that was really unique. And I think we flourished under the
Yeah.
coaching, and it was our job to go implement. It's like, yep. And our kids know to this day the saying, discipline is remembering what you want.
That is Brian's favorite quote.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
And they all know it
Yeah.
here in the
Yeah.
house.
He just quizzed me on that. We were on a podcast back in January, and he was like, "Do you know what my favorite quote was?" And I was like, "If I get this wrong, that's going to be embarrassing." But I was like, "This is the quote." I grew up with him saying that and it kind of being on the wall. It's true. If you remember what you want, then you put the discipline in, you can often achieve it. When did you make the leap? So financials have always been a strong suit of yours, right?
Yeah.
Is that the role that you were playing a lot when you were at your previous company with your brother?
And controller, probably a deeper influence on the field side.
Okay.
Um, I didn't ever wear the sales hat. that was something he did really well. But yeah,
How has it been, or what was that transition like for you to make a leap from being an operator in a business, a controller in a business, to then deciding to become a fractional CFO for other businesses?
that's really a great question. I think, like so many of us in the trades, we may not have said someday
Hmm.
I'm going to aspire to be a painting contractor, something in the trades, right?
Yeah.
That's not something we aspire to. And I think that would be also said of ProfitWorks. I love the challenges of a multi-location business, love growth and scaling. Team members have been there for years. So it becomes, truly we have a family, but we also have a business family. That transition was kind of interesting. I think to maybe that question has really made me reflect back in my early 20s. I was assistant controller for a robotics company.
Oh.
And that was kind of the love of numbers, efficiencies. The complexity of the role was really intriguing to me. So life moves on. I ended up leaving Portland, coming back to Walla Walla, my hometown. And it was 2002, and I was in need of some rescuing. My brother saw that I needed support. We had just lost our son, and he devised a way to basically come by every day, ask me to control the financials of the business. We were in some sticky situations, and the exchange was he'll take the crying baby for a couple hours. The newborn that was crying and just continuously crying. So
Hmm.
I look back and I feel so grateful. We're truly opposite strengths. We're Irish twins, two of 10 kids. We've always been close. And I see how well that served me that point of time where I probably need a reason that forced me out of my pajamas. So that was 18 years that went on where we just grew together. It was 2013 that we picked up our second location, and that brought some more complexity and challenges. And then 6 years ago, we parted ways. And so ProfitWorks wasn't on the map. It wasn't supposed to be a thing. I'm so grateful for the journey. It's served me in so many ways. Yeah.
It's probably got to be one of the reasons why your clients love working with you is you've been in the trenches of growing these businesses. You've seen the hardships. You speak the language. You can relate so well, and help them really see a different perspective of their financials that owners often can't see when they're so close to it.
And or the emotions of not being in the place you want to be, and the
Yeah.
exhaustion of putting in more time than you started a business, have freedom, and you don't feel very free.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, well,
um,
I thought having my own, being an entrepreneur, having my own business meant it's my time is mine. And that's not really the case.
no, it's not. It really isn't.
Yeah. Okay, so you started with fractional CFO work. So I'm trying to get like the story of profit works, how it came to be. And then I want to dive into things that you're seeing now and in the present day. But you started with being a fractional CFO, and then you moved into this remote talent placement opportunity. How did you see a connection? How did you go from fractional CFO to, oh, I can also serve another gap here?
Funny enough, in 2013, when we bought the second painting company, it's another location. I love scaling growth. Over the moon with excitement. This is going to be everything. So the second day, we hosted a breakfast and we had all the team members sit down, nicely newly bound handbooks were sitting in front of them. And this was the launch of what was going to be really great. We had $500,000 in sold work that we had handed, and so a handful of employees, and they said a couple words to each other in Spanish, stood up, shook my hand, and all walked out the door. None of them were legal, had the legal documentation to work in the US. So it's all of 24 hours in. And I have convinced my brother to do this, and we're in a total situation. So with the $500,000, no work, no labor to produce it in a city where we didn't live,
Oh,
give some
geez.
obstacles to overcome. It's a great story at
Yes.
the end, right? But I felt the desire of I need dashboarding. When I wake up, I'd like to know what city I should be in. I'm going to be home, or do I need to jump on the road to go manage these, get labor to the job sites, right?
Yep.
And that's when I went, ideally, I wonder if I could have someone work throughout the night. I'm looking for job costing day by day. We just launched iPads. It's 2013, right? Some of this seems silly in today's context, but that's what it was then.
Yeah.
So I read 2 books and went, I think my solution is hiring someone out of the Philippines. A
Which
big
I feel
mistake.
like at the time was
I didn't know anyone who had done it. I mean,
Yeah.
I went and bought 2 books to read. I knew of no one.
Yeah.
Like we knew of the big Verizons or whatever who were BPO centers, offshoring. And my first hire, I totally messed up. I didn't do it right. I didn't realize the structure that was required for remote. And so my
Hmm.
second hire, Diana, she's still with me today, 13 years later.
Wow.
She's now our benefit administrator. But I fell in love. I went, wow, not only is it helping me from a value standpoint, I underestimated the talent.
Yep.
I underestimated the professionalism that because they have a strong 22-year history in the Philippines, they put in their reps. They really do this well.
Hmm.
Their universities are catered for that remote offshore. And so that became, I think I could staff other parts of the business. And I went on to do it. Occasionally, if you go to a painting conference and people are like, so what's your, and you're comparing numbers and they're like, okay, what's missing? And then I tell them and they look at me like I had a third eyebrow, like,
Yeah.
uh, well, we're painting contractors. We don't have people in the Philippines. It was always kind of this funny banter. Um,
Yeah.
so it's been with me for the last 13 years. And then I feel like COVID broke the zip code, really. COVID opened a whole new framework for everyone as a lot of us went remote.
Yep.
Willing or unwilling, that's how we landed. So yes, Profit Works started fractional controllership CFO, but all along I had this other piece that I wasn't willing to flip the switch off. I love the alignment in our values, the loyalty. I have team members have been 13 years, 6 years. It's really a great thing. So
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, you were so ahead of the curve. Obviously, a lot of folks talk about it now. There's a lot of companies that do
definitely, definitely.
utilize offshore talent, but you were so ahead of even the thought, at a sense, that you people's eyes were like so confused by how do you even do this? How do you even find somebody? It's
How do
pretty,
you know they're not going to rob you blind?
yeah,
All
yeah.
these things. But it was a desperate situation. I really couldn't go convince someone locally to work throughout the night. So I had these dashboards that told me what city I needed to be in and what fires I needed to be putting out. So yeah,
So you were up in the morning, like ready and armed to go with the information that you
yeah,
needed to have your day be as productive and as efficient as possible.
yeah.
It's amazing. So here you were taking kind of two different functions or two like different talent areas, the fractional CFO side, controllership, and then the remote talent, things that you have both done in your own experience, your own business, saw that it could be deployed in other businesses, and you created something as a service for other, companies in the industry. It's pretty cool. You saw an opportunity, you knew how to do it, and you presented it. And now here you are, working with many, many other, businesses in the, is it just with painting businesses or do you work with other trades as well?
This painting space has just been so generous to us.
Yeah.
I think it makes up about 65% of our work and the others. So
Okay.
we're all construction and trades. We're not
Okay.
outside of that. Yeah.
Got it. Makes sense. All right, let's talk a little bit about fractional CFO work and controllership and things that you're seeing. You have the privilege of kind of being eyes and ears and in so many different environments. Why do you think this role in particular has become so critical? And do you see it more in the commercial space versus the residential space?
I think there's a level of complexity to commercial
Yeah.
that possibly gets you there sooner. So maybe
Okay.
not so much a certain revenue number. When do you need it? When do you not? If you are 100% commercial serving GC, you're going to need it much sooner than
Fair.
others, just given the complexity of things. I think maybe we even downplay somewhat how complex some of the decisions we have to make are. So when I think of commercial, a lot of our clients are commercial. I don't know how that came to be, but it is. It's a
Yeah.
thing. Larger projects that can bring a set of complexities that span beyond a year. Change orders usually equal margin risk if not managed correctly.
Hmm.
So we're identifying those things. WIP, which is work in progress, is a large portion of their financial Bible. Without WIP, a company could find themselves in a serious financial situation, not be able to recover it. When you talk about banking, even a line of credit renewal is going to require a WIP report. WIP is easy not to get right. Seems to be a little bit of struggle we find locally in the office, right? With our
Hmm.
clients. Bonding, performance bonding, insurance requirements, there's some complexity to that. Capital requirements, the cash flow cycle can get scary, quite frankly, right?
Yes. Yes.
So those are things that make me think of those fractional controllership, a fractional role may be needed to publish the process, set it, publish the workflows, and then strengthen yourself for that. We have two clients where we're also a bit of fielding. They're bidding large enough projects, over $1 million, that many times those projects come with a requirement to submit your financials to them. I highly advise not to. And it becomes a little bit of a game of cat and mouse. So it's nice for an ownership group to, even if it's a fractional controller or a fractional CFO, we initiate the meeting and we'll meet with them. Maybe they just want a working capital ratio, maybe just need, but I think there's only been once we've ever turned them over. We have usually been able to negotiate that. And I think that's not good for a client when you're giving them, it's everything. Yeah. So reviewed financial statements come into play. There's just probably more than what your residential painting company is seeing for requirements.
100%. What are some of the most common blind spots when you're working with a new company, or your team's working with a new company and you've been hired, for this space? What are some typical things you guys kind of see right away that's a pattern?
I think what's true for almost any business, you know what you know. And sometimes the staff we had in place, they were with us at the 2 mil mark, and they're still with us and we were considerably larger. They may not have the skill set to fully start to mirror the requirements the business has. And sometimes that puts pressure back on the owner. He was able to get it to a certain point and manage it, and then suddenly the tail feels like it's wagging the dog. It doesn't feel so great. So then then you're really at a fork in the road. Does the team member have the ability to be coached by our team and gain the additional skill set to do the role? Or now are we in a position where we might need to transition a bit?
I feel like that's fair. Kevin used to always say that, he needs to be hiring people who are smarter than himself in different functions, because he got this business off the ground. He could get it to a certain point, but when it comes to the financial of the business, like, that's not his wheelhouse, and he knows it. And it would be silly of him to think that he didn't need help there, or that he could oversee it and have somebody just do the activity. But this is strategic thinking, and it's strategic thinking about the financial health of your business, and that's not something to take very lightly.
And the larger we get, the faster the numbers move.
Yes.
Sometimes not a very thrilling manner.
Yeah. You have to really, this has to be a space that I would imagine you have to really love what you do. You have to really love the numbers and kind of thinking in this financially strategic way, or else it's not the right fit. I mean, this must be a love of yours.
It is, laughing about scalability. As my team has grown, we made it a requirement that there would be financial empathy. So that means we're looking for CFOs, controllers that have previously served the construction industry. So one of ours he was a partner of a GC firm. And because I think if change was easy, especially when it comes to the field, things would move really fast. But I think it's industries that don't understand the complexity of what we do. The advice can almost seem insulting. So I think we probably would be larger if we didn't have some of those strict requirements. I just think it's critical, right? And we can't be all things to all people. So it's nice to go, let's do this space with excellence.
Yeah. No, I think that's fantastic, because otherwise, you said in my mind, you're separating yourself from the other potential options that are out there, because you also know you can trust that your clients are going to have the right experience because of how critically you've looked at hiring. And that's huge. And I imagine too, is there a requirement where there's like an ability to be able to communicate? I mean, there's a translation that has to happen.
You can say it.
Yeah, the numbers and numbers to words. Someone has to translate that. And I would imagine that they have to be able to speak to an owner, to a GM in a way that we understand it.
Yes. There's incredible talent in the finance field. Some of the talent, their blend of strengths sometimes isn't around language. And you could say probably the same thing, but it's in the manner it was delivered is fairly impactful, how it will be received.
Yep.
So that has been one of the challenges, to really say, warmth. It's so funny. One of our core values is warmth. If we can't deliver a message with warmth and that financial empathy, we're probably going to miss the mark, no matter how correct and accurate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because, I mean, you could be delivering really great news. You can also be delivering really stressful and hard news. And it's how that news is delivered can often kind of set the tone for the conversation that then follows and the plan that then comes next.
for sure. A lot of our clients have a choice. We do a weekly cash positioning where all the money is mapped before it moves. We have a treasury function. And so before anything's paid, where did that leave us for every outlet we have to make payment? And sometimes when the news is bad, we need to send a video. Sometimes those weekly updates that go directly to the owner, there's that you couldn't retone. It's really important for them to know, but a minute and a half, 2 minute video, quick loom video overlooking it, they hear the tone or they hear our concern. We can run multiple scenarios without giving them this output that was so overwhelming. It wasn't really meaningful. So we have all this technology that's great. Those are some of the ways that we modify, knowing that you could read an email and think someone's shouting at you about your numbers. And actually that's not the case at all.
Completely. Yeah, that's such a great way the message in which and how it's received is a part of that warmth, is a part of that communication. I
Yeah.
love how you mentioned I love the weekly kind of cash flow or that like this is I just did a podcast with a bookkeeper on this. I imagine is one of the biggest problems that you see in this space is companies not understanding that profitability is not the same as healthy cash flow
Oh, yes.
and not seeing the connection there. I mean, is that a huge issue that you come across?
I think it's an issue for every client,
Yeah.
even the healthy ones,
Yeah.
right? I think it's challenging in our industry to have like a 9 week cash flow planner to really have it be accurate. So one of the most important predictive things we think is to have your predictive revenue broke out by week. And a lot of times we look at a monthly, but if you have within that month, you have a week where you're all the way down to like 500 man hours, 300 man hours, it could do in the entire month. All the other weeks could be great. And I think knowing that danger zone allows the management group, the ownership to get some intensity, like this is not going to be the lose week. We're not doing this. And I think without it displayed in relationship to the numbers, I think there can be some big misses.
This is when you want people to have their pulse on a weekly basis.
I do. And there's a lot of resistance around it. That
Yeah.
means you need the cooperation of the production team to have the revenue scheduled and predicted in such a way that's meaningful.
Mm.
And that's where you get a little bit of digging heels in. Well, how should we know this? Our backlog is our everything.
Have you seen a time where you dealt with a company that the production team had their heels dug in on that, and now on the flip side, now that they are on board with that cadence, that there's a change in how things are operating?
Yes. And it usually takes a bit of time.
Okay.
And really is not very meaningful when you're in the throes of summer.
Yeah.
Or you're in a state where you can collect 50% deposits and it's like everyone's high in life. It's just great. Those shoulder months, though, I think that's everything.
Yeah.
And I think once you have a significant enough line of credit, that's a banking requirement. And they'll say yes more willingly with visibility to your backlog and what it means. So
You wouldn't be pushing it if it wasn't for their own good. You're not making them
right,
do busy work
right.
for no reason at all. These things matter.
They do. And sometimes our reporting third party platforms don't do a great job of capturing it. So there's a
Yeah.
little bit of some finessing behind the scenes to make it happen. And I think sometimes we want to be so tech forward at times that we're like, well, this can't do it. It's not an option. It's not a report setting as of now. But there's times where that good old Google sheet sure comes into play.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, well,
Yeah,
that platform can't do it, but I sure can.
sure.
What other metrics, besides kind of that cash flow awareness,
Mhm.
are there any other important ones that you deem that owners should be looking at weekly versus, monthly versus quarterly? Like, are there a couple that really stand out
Yeah.
to you?
One that has come to light, maybe come into the spotlight much more so in the last couple of years is our backlog,
Okay.
especially on commercial. You could have an incredible year. And if you don't have enough work sitting in your backlog, you could miss 1 month. And because the volume that you do could make the entire year upside down. And that's terrifying. And it's a
Hmm.
real thing. I don't say that just kind of scare the bejeebus out of people, but it's a real thing. And when that's a pattern, you watch the owners popping financials annex all the time. immediately like start peeling it back. We either have a
Yeah.
cash flow or we haven't been able to cascade down that message. That's a Nolan thing, cascading down the message
Hmm.
that our backlog is everything. It's absolutely everything. And we can be bullish about the future when we feel really sure about our backlog. The
And then
debt
feel really
valley,
scared. And then when there's
yes,
not.
yes, the death valleys, I think when overhead increases and we don't have the speed of the revenue happen from a
Yep.
time perspective, which I believe is avoidable, but some don't hit a danger zone before they realize, uh-oh, we're in a real pickle.
Hmm.
I see maybe another danger zone is those who have been maybe heavily in the repaint market, whether it be residential or commercial, and they're transitioning to not the repaint market or more of a commercial payment terms that they may underestimate how much they need on a line of credit, the capital requirements, the business that can be off, or they're kind of new to plan reading. They don't have a strong grasp of those contracts. They don't realize there's a bit of knock 'em sock 'em. You're going to red line. There needs to be a fighter in the ring, right? Yeah. And usually the numbers are bigger. So
Yeah.
maybe those are some of the areas where I see that.
So when a company is maybe making that transition, they decided they either wanting to do more commercial work or they want to get out of the res repaint and change their model to be more commercial. Is that when you recommend really considering looking at bringing in
Yes.
someone with more financial, controller expertise?
Yes. And I think it's not just on what does your financial report say? I think you want to invite that influence. You have to look at a little bit of the framework, your org chart. What's the relationship and the accountability of the PM?
Yeah.
That's a big deal. And I think maybe if we're thinking that crew leader foreman type model, we may not quite be prepared for the next step.
I wonder, is it hard to be in the role of a controller or a, whether a controller within an organization or fractional? I mean, to be a deliverer of news, good and bad, to be having to rationalize or not rationalize, but convince that behaviors need to change when owners might not see it or fully understand it. I mean, I can imagine it can feel like a lonely island sometimes.
You can, and sometimes you can almost tell in the face, like they have a sense they know what you're going to tell them.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think that the ability to storyboard and tell is so important,
Hmm.
especially if maybe this is a tougher concept to grasp. I think that's where we need to step back and stop just like hitting it with numbers. There's so much story around us, and being able to frame what does good look like? What does
Yeah.
success look like?
Yeah.
As opposed to that the negative is pointing to the positive. It's when you're in conversations and, well, I got a PM. Well, do they have language around what is a successful project manager? And can we make a distinction? Could we have a senior project manager that can deal with a client over a contentious money issue, and a senior project manager, they will get it resolved and the relationship will be preserved. A non-senior project manager will get the money and the relationship could be permanently tarnished.
Mm.
So instead of saying, no, we shouldn't be doing money activities, wait, let's break it out further. So
Yeah.
taking money and putting a relationship to roles, outcomes, compensation systems, those type of things is I think where it gets really real.
Let's talk a little bit about roles and talk, from the remote talent side, because, I think from a controller perspective, obviously the goal is financial health, financial clarity. And there's a nice connection here because this offshore talent component can really play a huge factor in, creating profitability and being able to bring on really strong talent and really smart people at a fraction of the cost,
Yeah.
yet really kind of build and strengthen the organizational, clarity of the business and health of the business. How have you seen? I mean, you must have seen there's positions that really thrive in this remote talent work, and then positions that don't.
Yes.
Are there ones that stick out to you on both sides of that?
I think those who either want to go 100% AI or 100% global,
Hmm.
that's a big red flag to me. I think it's managing a blend of these things. A PM role and a sales role where it's boots on the ground and you're creating an experience and it's in person. Don't change that.
Keep that as it is.
And maybe where you've picked up a little bit of margin, hire the best that money can buy. So separating, sometimes I think historically roles used to look like this is everything entirely within this function, and you're hiring for someone to do all those things. There's probably been more reconfiguring of the org chart than ever before. AI and global talent is doing that, where I think what's rising up is we're looking for stars from the human capital standpoint. and the management of AI, those
Mhm.
are treasured roles that are quickly coming into play.
That's a really good point. So being able to use that global talent or the
Yeah,
AI to really maybe support the really strong salesperson who instead of not wasting, but sharing their time doing parts of the role that
yeah.
somebody else could kind of could really support. There's an opportunity here.
Definitely. Let's go pick on a role. For example, an estimator role, I think historically has been estimator combination sales. So
Yes.
we can have an invitation to bid. And I think about a book. You have a front cover, the middle part of the book is quite wide, and then you have back cover. Just the front and the back covers, I think that's a sales function. And I
Okay.
believe it should be local. And it should be wrapped in relationship. It should have an element of biz dev prospecting to it. And then the nuts and bolts of go run that plan, take off, write a great scope of work, have a 3D modeling in there, like go win in the middle, be clear about what winning looks like there. Managing all the bid invites, that's a great global role. But that last little putt before you kick off that $1 million bid, warm and work the phones. What's the chance I could get last look, right? Swinging by the job shack, the other things like that. But that leverage of that middle. So does that make sense? Like you're not
I know it absolutely does.
that
Yep.
role and saying it's 100%. It's probably 95.
They're also, when you think about it, they're very different strengths.
Very.
I mean, somebody who is relationship based and sales, very different than someone who is estimating and takeoffs and blueprints. I mean, there's a technical piece
Yes.
of mind to that role that a salesperson might struggle with. And so I think separating those out, like how can and I love the book analogy. It makes so much sense. How do we use our people the best way to the
Mhm.
best of their talents?
Most definitely. And it makes that one individual, you can then stack and build a department where you had to, that's 120K, 140K for every hire.
Yep.
Now your leverage is 32K all in a year. And that's how if you're on it in scaling, maybe that's how you choose to scale some of your work because you're not stacking it in overhead and marketing and other things. You're preserving your net profit and catching the upside. So that's where maybe offshore,
Yeah,
fractional, CFO controller, they have a bit of a relationship.
they do.
They do. In a strange way. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine, I mean, gosh, the clients that work with you are lucky because you have the ability to look at their organizations with those two pieces in your mind, right? I imagine that you can look at a P&L, you can look at an organizational chart, you can understand the dynamics of a company, and you're able to make recommendations on that organizational chart based upon the growth desires of that business and the things that you know about its financial health.
I would say I have an incredible team, but I would add probably one more dynamic: tech. Our third party platforms and the way that our platforms and the way we're managing things, I think it sits alongside those published workflows, sit alongside of our org chart. And we see how the work is being done.
Yep.
We ask ourselves, is there a different approach between that and AI? Like it's a little more complex, right? That what's true today, it's about 75% of HR and payroll can be very well managed with an in-house put position global talent. And that other 25% is local. But this is where you're leaning into, you're looking for a kind of a rock star recruiter. And all the paper screening and all the functions of that is coming into play. We see more and more fractional roles. I've seen a significant uprise in like the last 12 months of fractional recruiting, not
Interesting.
for just your C-suite level, but fractional recruiting for painters and carpenters and other things. That
Yep.
they're bringing in platform combined with global, and it's just a very interesting component. So that's kind of new on the scene that we're seeing.
It makes sense because I mean, I know of several companies that we work with that they have a full-time in-house recruiter, but it's because they're of the size that it makes sense. But
Yeah.
for companies of a small revenue size, I mean, that is a talent that is needed. It doesn't have to be a full-time hire, that the fractional capabilities are so available.
And I think even we have a client with about 115, they have one HR, and separating out that bottom half, it's a significant role. You're not going to lay off that role to go roll through a winter. By the numbers at 115, it's hard to swing multiple HR allocations in your budget.
Yeah.
So you're riding a little bit differently to that spot.
It's changing the way that we think about how, I mean, you said it, you've seen more changes to the organizational chart in probably the last year or two than ever before. Through all these things that you have seen, through all these companies that you have worked with, what do you think think some of the best run companies, both financially and team structure wise, what do they have in common? What are they doing right that separates them from everybody else?
The quote that comes to mind, strategy without execution is a dream. Execution without strategy is a nightmare. And leadership is everything. It really is. It's a beautiful thing when you see a management group. There's the culture and they're clicking and the speed. You can almost judge the success by the speed in which things get done. Politicking is super low. Transparency, almost uncomfortable, can happen. That radical candor, there's an element of there. I'd say on our side, one of the challenges as fractional controllerships and CFOs is the balancing of a decisive, very fast-moving owner, and we must be courageous enough to point out the danger zones and have the ability to disrespectfully or to respectfully disagree and present it, knowing that we don't have the authority. It's a challenging position. We don't have the authority to be the final call, but we're held responsible for the outcomes.
That's a really hard place to be.
It can be really tough. And I think that's where relationship, and this is a trust business. I think sometimes we will get 3 of our staff on a call when maybe I don't have the best messaging that will resonate. I have a team member that he can dig right into story. He was one of 5 partners. It's exactly what went down and how it went down. Just helping, knowing that we're going into a little bit of a struggle instead of wring our hands about it. Let's go fully prepared. Yep. Courageous conversations are kind of a thing.
Courageous conversations. No, it makes a logical sense. That radical candor. I'm forgetting the author who wrote that book.
I am too. She's
yeah.
good. Sorry. Yeah, it escaped me, but
But if you haven't read that book, we highly recommend because it does. I mean, different book, but crucial conversations. It's those companies that know how to really talk to one another, have built that trust in the good times and in the bad times, probably what set themselves apart.
Right.
And an owner who is open to listening to their team. I mean, that's huge. Who respects the management team and the decisions that team is making.
And I think the larger organizations where you have a GM in place, you have a management team, and you're carrying a fractional controllership CFO role, and then you have the owner. The owner may not be completely passive, or they are a passive owner. We are often a bit of can't run into the owner's office with this problem. Do you guys have a minute?
Yeah.
We can unpack where they need to present to the owner. Maybe they need, Annie, is there something? Drew, are you seeing something we're not seeing? And can you help me present? This is what I think we have to go. It's usually a tough thing. And sometimes it's not solely financial, if that makes sense. It's kind of, but you're guiding with the numbers. When emotions maybe are getting the best.
It makes so much sense because often in those moments, that's where emotions can take over. And if you are not practicing, pause, reflect, and choose, if you struggle with emotional intelligence, that can completely blow up a situation and often lead to a lot of regret when things don't have to land that way.
Yeah, for sure.
For anybody who's listening to this, whether they're an owner, they're a GM, they're somebody, in a management or leadership position and is thinking we need help, whether it's financial clarity or organizational clarity. What are some questions they should begin to ask themselves, whether or not they're ready to kind of even go down either avenue?
I think it's okay to have the questions and not know if that's the right question to be asking.
That's good.
To bring pain. Come in with your pain. These are the things that keep us up. Sometimes reflecting on how we can bring value, we often want to find after a meeting is done, what was the thing that still continuously, repetitively doesn't get resolved? Usually,
how can we lighten that load?
How can we lighten that load? And sometimes it's maybe we don't have good dashboarding. Maybe there's just not clarity on the financials. So there's a lot of circling conversations, but just the outcomes don't come. That could be a sign that you would benefit by having someone weigh in and drive with the numbers. I think you would want to maybe check, is this a service that is focusing on your industry? There's amazing financial partners and accountants and lots of fractional offerings out there. I think when they don't have prior experience with serving our industry, sometimes we're the cleanup crew.
Yeah.
Calls that said, we dropped 100K. We might even be worse off than we were before. Our WIP has to be off by at least $500,000. We have a line of credit coming up. It looks like we're not bankable, but we actually don't know if we're bankable or not. Our balance sheet doesn't get reconciled every month on every line. I know that seems, but we have to have it if we have accrual accounting and WIP. So It's usually a pain point. Sometimes it's, come on, my cap is 300,000 on the line of credit. This doesn't feel right. We'll look at it and we'll go, we agree with you. All your banking relationships you can peel into the back end and look at the banks and go, they have the wrong NICs. They are set up to serve a different NICs code than what you are. And so the underwriting department is going to say, this is our tolerances here. So we practice some agnostic banking. So it's maybe the thing that you're carrying as a continual stressor, I think maybe have that lead. And it might just lead you to the type of services you need.
I think that's great because if you start with being vulnerable, what your pain point is, it really honestly opens up the best floor for discussion. I mean, let's be real here about the conversation, what our company truly needs and what can be provided. For folks who want to learn more about ProfitWorks, Annie, what is the best way for them to start a conversation with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn or Annie at profitworksusa.com. It's my email address. But yeah, we're happy to just be a sounding board. Sometimes it may not be, I think we hear a lot, we need a CFO. And there's times we'll lean in and go, maybe about this much of a CFO, what's really needed is controllership services. And I think that hiring a fractional CFO has a sexy element to it a little bit. Many of them are truly hampered by doing their best work because the financial controls have not been put into place. And you can't really speak to what is the accuracy of the data and is it found in gap and all those things. So controllership is a very different skill set. But I find controllership typically comes before CFO.
Fantastic. And I mean, I can speak from the coaching perspective when we can work with a company who has accuracy in their financial data. Gosh, it's a game changer for what the strategy that can then be derived, the conversations that can be had, the pain points that can be better understood. Because you actually have the data to fully understand and be able to make better decisions with. It's a game changer.
I would imagine the difficulties in coaching that there might be things that should be said or need to be said, but you're holding back because what if the information wasn't right?
Yep.
Right. So you're maybe you have to play at a 50% instead of all in. That I would imagine that's really challenging.
It's really challenging. That's why we always start with trying to get a good handle on the financials, making sure that the books are clean, that they're running the proper reports. It's a big part of the setup sometimes. I mean, and that can happen at really any size of business. You see it at the $10-12 million business who grew really fast and never really got their financial controls in place, don't really have the best team members within those bookkeeping roles or controllership. And so I often describe them as an analogy of they're a tree that's grown really tall with very weak roots in the ground, because one big job or a couple weeks of bad cash flow can really break those big businesses.
I completely agree. And I think having visibility into the back end of multiple businesses, and I can speak from being a client, the financial excellence from the Nolan Group. I see all kinds of frameworks and systems and a variety of products out there. It is the most robust. I don't know anyone that has more KPIs than what you run with your Nolan book, and the ability to kind of compare budget versus actual year over year, month over month. We don't get that in a single click out of QuickBooks, right? Yeah. The way that data is organized. And I think that makes it so much easier for our team to roll in and go, we can more quickly see, we just let's have a patch here. This looks like it either needs to be coached up or we've got to do something different here. And really, I think one of the things we want to do is partner with the local teams. Some people are fearful a little bit like, they're offshore and fractional. Most of our work is done all within and through local teams. And then we'll just bolt on what's needed. That's what's best for the company. It's best for the culture. I don't know that we have success if we come with an all or nothing solution.
Totally agree.
And I think each business is so unique in our makeup of revenue that I don't think there's an out of box. Here's the formula to go have a very successful $5 million company. If you're in floor coatings, and I think there's all these variables, suddenly we want to get really, let's make it to be how you're using your information.
Yeah, I love that you said that because it's not like a one and done here. Like, here's the playbook and you're going to be successful. It's just not how it works. And anybody who claims otherwise is making things up. It is month by month. Every business is so different. It comes down to also the ownership and the management team and the resources and the players that you have, both in-house, globally, and people you partner with. It's who you surround yourself with and who you surround your organization with can be a big factor in what success looks like ultimately.
100%.
Yeah. Well, Annie, it was a pleasure. I mean,
Thank you.
I can speak, for our company, Nolan Consulting Group. It's always a pleasure working with you. Clients that work with you love that relationship as well. So we highly recommend Annie and her
Thank
team. They
you.
are fantastic. Your core value of warmth is one that you also just convey on a very natural basis. So it makes complete sense from a value standpoint. But I always say until next time, because I'd love to have you on in the future if you'll come back.
Thanks, Molly.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Until next time.
sounds great. Bye bye.